10 books to talk about, limited time, a sore throat, and not much water left. So I'll try to make this fast for both of us. Oh, hi, welcome to the wrap-up of November. You might be like, girl, what are you even talking about here? The answer is all the books I read in November that weren't for videos and or arcs. So basically any book that I didn't have the ability to yap about earlier in the month, I now yap about at the end of the month. The end, that's what happens. I forgot I have to pull up the monthly stats because I do like to briefly, as a caveat, ignore the sound of my computer being loud. My car's been filming a lot. I do like to talk about very basic stats, like so basic. We're not gonna go in depth like I used to do. It's just gonna be that I read 16 books total. 10 of them I have to talk about now. Okay, girl. I read 4,476 pages, 76 and a half audiobook hours. My most read genre was paranormal romance. We love that for me. And the average rating was 3.28. I'm gonna be honest, there were absolutely 0 5 stars. Most of them were 3 stars, and then 4 stars for second place, but still. I didn't do great this month. And that's fine, but I did read a lot of paranormal romances, and we will not talk about any of them because they were all for videos. Books, me talking, I have them written down. Let's go. I'm gonna tell you about the books. Midnight Ruin, which is the 6th book in Dark Olympus series. I'll be honest, I forgot that I was supposed to continue the series because I stopped reading to give Katie Robert more time to publish more, and then I got notified that the new one, I think is Tender Cruelty, is like just about to come out, which is the Hera and Zeus one, which is the one I've been most excited about since like book 3, right? I've been very mad about most of them since book 3, so I've just been patiently waiting. I'm watching a recording of my dog kicking the air right behind you. That was very funny. Anyways, oh boy, your dogs are very cute. Anyways, so I just been patiently waiting for the Tender Cruelty to come out, which I think is the 9th of 10. I think there's 10 planned, and that's the 9th one. That would make sense. I think that would make sense because I just finished 6, and I still have to read 2 more before I can get to that one, right? So I got reminded that that's coming out, and I was excited for that. So then I put the audiobooks I've been reading them all as audiobook for Midnight Ruin on hold, but it's like multiple month waits. So I was just patiently waiting, and I finally got able to read it beginning of this month. First book I finished this month. Also, I was like so sick all month long, so audiobooks were my life. Maybe be like, girl, what to talk about? You didn't read many hours in that sad stuff you gave me. Trust me, it was actually a lot. Anyways, so Midnight Ruin is like book 6, so I can't talk much about what it is. It's essentially a throuple where one of them is the ex of the female main character who betrayed her, and her bodyguard slash best friend, kind of best friend, and her kind of have this flirtation, and then but she's still dealing with like that betrayal emotionally. So he's all like, goes to that other guy, he's like, hey, just so you know, that's how much you hurt her. So he shows up and he's like, hey, I'm sorry, and I'm willing to crawl on the ground like a dog for you. And so then he's very much the bottom of their throuple, and a lot as more universe based shenanigans happen, and things happen that I'm not gonna go into about. The world's going crazy. The end. 3 stars. I'm thinking of ending things. Okay, this one's really funny. I picked up this book, not reading the synopsis, thinking, hey, I'm thinking of ending things as in herself. To learn very quickly that actually I'm thinking of ending this relationship. Listen, I kind of hated her, but I also saw myself in her as like 16-year-old me, but she's like my age now, right? In which there's like this sweet, nice guy that she very quickly like starts getting to know, and then and now they're in a full-blown relationship, but there's like this whole thing where he seems to care more about the relationship than she does, and she's dealing with the fact that she doesn't know if she loves him enough, and so she's trying to decide whether or not to break up with him while they're on this road trip to meet his parents, right? And so every little thing that happens, she's all like changes her mind of which way to go, whether to stay with him or to finally break up because she is just met in this relationship. Girl, I get it. I've been in relationships too long. Again, like 20-year-old me, okay? That I should have ended because I was just like mad about the relationship or about them, but they were clearly very happy, and I was just like, I don't know how to deal with this. Okay, but she's a full-blown, fully formed frontal lobe adult, so I don't understand what her issues are. Anyways, they're on this road trip to middle of nowheres to meet his family. They get there, and everything's throughout this book, everything's just like slightly off. We're just like, this feels weird. Like this like, I remember for the first, like, 20%, I was reading on my phone, on my Kindle, and I was like, this feels weird, right? And they hadn't even gotten to the parents yet. And then I looked up Storygraph, and it did say horror, and I went, oh, okay. So there's, like, this very tense, weird, everything feels slightly wrong, dinner with his parents, and then they leave, and more things go wrong, and they end up someplace where they're not supposed to, and things do go wrong, and then the end of the book happens. And let me tell you, the end of the book, it's one of those, like, it's like one of, like, 3 books where I've had to look up what happened at the ending. I love when that happens, and I'm like, oh, I was right. Which was this one? So that was exciting. I'm so intrigued how they did in the movie, because I know there was a Netflix movie adaptation, so I kind of want to watch that at some point. When I have, like, 5 minutes. But, you know, it was, the ending was very shocking. I get why some people may not like it. I can totally see it, but most of the book was very mad about for me. And then that ending happened, and I went, oh, this just made the whole book interesting. So that's why I give it 3.5, because most of the book was 3, and then that ending went, wait a second, hear me out. So that's my review of it. I'm surprised I liked it as much as I did, honestly. We're gonna talk about 2 volumes, You Know the Dawn, despite the fact that volume 32, I read like 3 days ago. We were talking about 31 and 32. This is the beginning of a new arc that I saw coming. I think it was in the I tried to read 30 books in 30 days vlog. I think near the end of that one, I was like, I think what's coming up is this arc where Yona is kind of forced into join the other competing group section of the throne, which is her cousin who murdered her father right in front of her on her 16th birthday. We're not talking about it. She was in love with him when that happened. So I was like, at some point they're gonna have to team up, and I was expecting it was gonna happen soon where they have to team up, and they try to force, because there's still some people who are like Team Yona, especially since more and more the book has happened. She's been seen more and more just among the common people fighting for them, sometimes quite literally. And so she's like getting positive press, essentially. She's getting positive publicity. People are looking towards her as like the only child of the murdered king, but also somebody who's doing so good. So I was expecting they're going to try to force engagement between them to join their 2 groups. And yeah, essentially that's what's happening. Essentially what's happening is they do have to join forces. They are keeping her separate from her dragons. That's the whole thing. We don't need to talk about it. This is my favorite manga series, by the way. I think it may compete with The War On as my favorite. Yeah. Anyways, they're keeping her separate from her dragons, but also her personal guard, who is her also love interest. And I really hate how we had to take a pause from their romance that was finally like going 4th gear, like it was going full force ahead, and then we had to just stop so fast. I think that's why I've been very mad about these 2 volumes, is because we really had to stop the part. Like, we finally got to a thing that I was excited for, and I was living my best life. I was freaking out on stream multiple times. I was so excited, and then it just went, nope. So now we have to deal with the fact that they're making it publicly known that she may be engaged to the new king, who is her cousin, who nobody knows killed her dad. So she's dealing with all of that. There's also like more political things. Listen, I liked it more when they were on the road and fighting everyday people or different gangs and helping the people on the ground. This one's more of like in the castle and trying to help people from higher up, from inside the system, but also she's being continuously manipulated and used and lied to, so she doesn't understand what's happening. And then they're like, you're just a girl, see, clearly you don't know what you're doing. So they're not my favorites. I say that, but they're still 4 stars. There was like, I think volume 30, I almost rated 5 stars. Like, let's be real, it really went from the highest peak for me to the lowest peak for me. I just anyways, moving on. Brazen, which is a graphic novel that I want to read for a while. It's like 500 pages, just short of 500 pages. That is a nonfiction about different women through history that like you don't learn about in history class, right? And their importance towards society. Like there was like a Greek gynecologist from like ancient Greece, right? As one of them, there was like an art collector, Polish art collector from around World War II times. All this type of stuff, right? So people, I went to American public school, so I already had essentially no history lessons. You think they're also going to teach me about women? No. So, me adult trying to take that education into my own hands. And so why not a graphic novel to like really push myself into that the easy way? This was originally, I think, French in 3 separate smaller books, and then it was translated into English and published as one big book. Listen, on top of the art sometimes wasn't my style, but whatever. I did like it, but like you also have to give her props for doing research on, I think it's like 25 women or something like that. like, all these women go in-depth research about every single one, right? And then somehow fit what you can into, like, 4 or 5 pages of graphic novel. So, like, 20 panels. It was, like, it's 20, 30 panels. So, props for that. That was well done. Also, at the end, there was another thing where at the end of the book, I do want to re-get it from Libby so that I can, like, take a screenshot, but at the end of the book, there was a bunch of list of, like, resources and stuff, but also a list of other 20 women, and some of those I actually knew. I'm sorry, I thought everybody knew about Anne Bonny, the pirate. Also, some other pirates. Listen, there's some female pirates I really love. Anyways, I think that was her name. I certainly am very worried I got it wrong. I got it right. Go me. Anyways, so I read that. 4 stars. Also, did I mention it's my nonfiction era? I've been in my nonfiction era all year, but this month I read 3. Like, it's wild. One of those was I'm Sorry for My Loss, which is about 2 women who were childhood best friends, were chatting up one day and learned that around the same time one of them had stillbirth and the other one had a miscarriage. And so it's them dealing with their grief of that in society where they're not supposed to grieve that because you can just have another kid, right? And they already have kids and all this stuff. And then them looking into the science of it, but also talking to other people who've gone through similar things. Like, a lot of the book is testimonies from other people with their own experiences, and how the world, how society does not hold space for them to grieve this process, but also that their body clung to this one thing that they're told that they're supposed to be able to do by the government. Also, there was this whole aspect where I'm pretty sure they started to write it before Roe versus Wade was overturned, but then that happened. So then there's, like, this whole section of this book about that, and it was good. It is, all right, hear me out, it is my favorite of the month because, one, I had, like, 5 4-stars, so I had to choose one of them, and what would be considered my favorite of the month was a reread, so this one won it. It was really good. It was very sad. I think I cried at one point in bed reading it. I think I highlighted parts. It was good. I recommend. Next up, Curse of Wings and Darkness. I have the arc of the sequel and I need to read it because it's been out for like 2 months. And so, this has been like my reading in bed on my phone every once in a while, like 3 times a month for the past like 3 months, right? And so I finally bit the bullet and just sat there and finished it. When I finally did that, like, I finished it really fast. I guess this is also, for some reason, okay, so I can't decide the difference between romantasy and paranormal romance, because, like, okay, romantasy, like, in ACOTAR, but, like, that's also paranormal. He's fae with bat wings. Like, what are you talking about? The other one turns into, like, a lion or whatever. I don't, right? So in my head, I tell the difference by paranormal romance is modern, more modern, our world, but there's magical creatures in it. And romantasy is, like, your typical, fantasy, right? But then there's also romance. So your typical, like, high fantasy world, right? This one is modern New York City. She goes to NYU. She is a musician. There's a whole bunch about YouTube in it because she has a YouTube channel and is starting to get popularity where she makes her own music. So that's the whole thing. And she, okay, we gotta talk about my main complaint, which is very fast. It goes into, her and her best friend / roommate go out to this party. She's dragged out to this party. She doesn't want to go. She goes to this party and she starts chatting up this guy who she's seen around before. And my dogs are very cute. Oh my god. And so she goes to this party, chatting up this guy who she has seen around campus, right? He buys her a drink. There's this other guy that comes up behind her in a man bun, which I also agree with her. Don't trust a man in a man bun. But whatever, especially a strange one. Stranger you've never met comes up behind her. It's like, don't drink the drink he gives you. And she's like, oh, this guy's so weird, and drinks it anyways. It's drugged. This guy was planning to and kill her. He has multiple victims. Man bun guy, actually a vampire. Actually a vampire. The way it's described is more Dracula, less, like, literally these words are used. More Dracula, less Twilight. But also very Edward-esque. I was also, like, it said more Dracula, less Twilight, but in my head, I went more Buffy, less Twilight, because his name is Angel. You can't name a vampire that is said to look monstrous instead of, like, hot, pretty vampire. Like, he's monstrous in his vampire form, and make me not think of Buffy. Are you on something? Clearly. Anyways, clearly I was thinking of Angel from Buffy, but with long hair. Anyways, he, like Edward, hunts down bad people, and feeds off of them, right, to survive. And so this was, like, his next target, and it sees him about to attack another girl, so he does that. Instead, Ed, takes her home, and, like, makes sure she is okay. But during all this, her best friend has left her alone without telling her at this bar and then acts like it's like breeze past so fast. Like, Angel, is very pissed and is like, doesn't like her best friend because he's like, she left you alone at a strange bar you've never been to in the middle of the night with a strange guy and you were drugged. And the only reason something much worse happened to you is because I was there. And I am a monster. So I don't, like, he's understandably mad about it. But she was too busy hitting on a girl. This is bad, like, for lesbians. Anyways, this happened so early on, and it came out of nowhere. This is the thing about reading, indie self-published books that nobody's really read, is that there's no content warnings on Storygraph. And so then, I can't be like, oh, okay, and be prepared. Anyways, so this happens. She is really not that traumatized, because, like, 3 days later, she's banging Angel. So that's fun. And there's also stuff with, there was, like, a guy at a party of her family's a few years ago who also assaulted her, and that's, like, heavily hinted at the second half when they go to the family. That's the whole thing. She's also, like, super rich, right, and so she learns that magical creatures are real, and she keeps on being fed on, and she's very, like, why suddenly all this magical stuff is happening. One, turns out she can see the future, which I do love. Two, yeah, they very fast fall in love. Three, there's also hints of eating disorder with her, and so it's a lot of him, like, making sure she eats enough, cooking for her, and all this stuff. Apparently he makes really good scrambled eggs. As a bitch who's recently gotten into eggs, learning how to cook eggs in a way that I like, I'm intrigued. So it's her trying to deal with this romance while also dealing with the fact that the magical world is real, while also dealing with family drama, because there's also, like, this whole classism aspect, because he's also originally from Spain, right? So he's, like, a lower class citizen from Spain that's, like, 500 years old, and she is, like, a 21-year-old rich white girl, okay? So when she takes him home to meet the family, you get the vibes that immediately happen. She also has very strong anxiety, right? Anyways, she learns she can see the future, and then other things happen, and most of the book was fine, and I did like how easy it was to read, but then it would just be like, all of a sudden, oop, eating disorder, all of a sudden, oh yeah, she was assaulted like 5 years ago, like all this stuff. I'm just like, which is why I gave it 3 stars. I say that it is a debut. It is a debut, and so there's been at least 2 other books that she's published since then, and I have arcs about them, and I have not read them. Woo! So 3 stars, but it was easy to read, and it wasn't bad per se. It just irked me at some points. The end. Then I read Financial Feminist. You might be like, girl, what the fuck? I ran a book club. It was requested that November. So January was requested of this year was requested to be business books, and November. Well, she also wanted not feminism. I wish financial books. And so I fit it into November, and listen, half the books on the wheel to be chosen were billionaire romances that I put on there instead. Technically one of those did win, but I went, no, that's cheating, and removed them and then spun it again, and Financial Feminist won. Which, if I were to enjoy a financial book, this would be the one I would most likely enjoy, okay? Like, I don't like business or financial books. They feel icky to me, okay? But this one is this woman, apparently she's big on social media or something, I don't know. She's made a lot of money. Talking about, she's like, helps you explain, like, helps you understand the different types of debt, and like what credit card debt is and how to get out of it, how to save money for your personal goals properly, in a way that makes sense with what you need to pay for. Like, it's not like one of those that's like, well, you could buy a house at 30 if you don't eat avocado toast. Bitch, I haven't eaten avocado toast in like 7 years. And I'm not buying a house anytime soon. So, lies. And talking about how, the fact that anything that has to do with money is usually taught to men, but women is like, do you really need to know that? And if they buy anything for themselves, it's looked down upon. You have to, like, work for your family or buy things for your family. But if you work for yourself and buy things for yourself, it's like, you're not supposed to do that. And our women aren't, like, taught any of these important things they're supposed to know about financially. And also how women, because, like, they're paid less, but also black, or women of color in general, but black women is the main statistic, queer people and disabled people, I love being 3 out of 4, are usually in a worse off situation and all this stuff, but, like, they're the one that need this information, and so the whole entire, I don't want to say politics of it, but kind of all that stuff. And so, like, it's financial stuff, but it's also about this important stuff of, like, why some people aren't set up to succeed financially in this world, just because of who they are. And yeah, because that, it wasn't horrible. 3 stars. Listen, there's no way I'd ever give a financial book more than that. That's like top tier for you. Good job. Then I read the worst book of the month that I just remembered I have to add to my biggest disappointments of the year list, which is Pine. This is a Scottish horror. It's like a Scottish atmosphere, woodsy horror. It's like essentially impossible to get in America, because something to do with publishing rights in America. So I had to pay a pretty penny to get it, and I hated it. One, it took me over halfway through the book to learn that Lauren, the main character, is 10 and a half. Okay? Like, I thought she was 16 for most of the book. Anyways, it starts with, on Halloween night, she's hanging out with her best friend Billy, and his mom, is... Also, there's like a whole thing where there's 2 characters, and I don't know which one is Billy's mom, and which one's just like another female motherhood character that she's friends with. I don't know. Anyways, she's out trick-or-treating, they're on the way home, and they find a girl on the middle of the road, looking starved and wearing a nightgown, all this stuff. So her dad puts her in the truck and drives them home and goes and like tries to take care of her. She's not saying anything. Lauren wakes up the next morning and his dad's like, "What are you talking about? I don't know any girl." Very quickly, very obvious, that it's the ghost of her mother. It's like so obvious, and it doesn't explain that to you until like 80% of the way through the book. I'm like, yeah, I guess that like in the second chapter. Anyways, it's her mother's ghost, and it's described by this other witchy character because her mother was very witchy, right? And there's like, she finds her mother's grimoire at some point and she starts doing witchy stuff herself. Listen, the best part was when she does take in a physical fight with her bully, she pulls out some of her hair so that she can use it in a spell and freezes her in part of the spell, and then she ends up, the bully end up going through the ice in the lake, and because of that, the bully finds something that points towards this other missing girl that we'll talk about that in a minute. That made me laugh, okay? That's the only positive I have for this book. So she goes, and learns all this weird magic stuff. Her mother had magic, right? But has been missing since she was a baby, and we'll talk about that also in a second. And so it's described as other people who see her, right? Just like very much like the silence in Doctor Who. As soon as they see her, they just push her out of her mind. But Lauren wants to see her so much that she remembers her, is how it's described, which makes no sense after you learn what happened to her and why, because it's explained as her father doesn't want to see her because, like, it's heavily hinted at that he killed her. Most of the town, everyone in town, most of the mothers in town all believe that he did this, okay? And so that's why she's horrendously bullied, because these kids are like, "Hi, your dad killed your mom. Let's throw soup on you and break into your house and steal dead animals to leave on your school desk." I hate 10-year-olds. Anyways, so she is dealing with that, right? And it makes no sense because, so the spoiler, I don't know who's gonna read this, but also don't read it. He didn't do it, right? And so from his point of view, we know that he does want to see his wife drastically. Like, he got really excited when he saw her in the middle of the road, right? And all this stuff, but it's like heavily hinted at, like when somebody else sees her and he's all like, "Oh, there's no way it could be her," as if he knows that she's dead, but he still believes she's alive somewhere, right? And so it makes no sense because he wants to see her so bad that he starts like doing witchy stuff himself to try and see her, right? But the ghost of her is back because the guy who killed her is back, and she wants to protect her own daughter. But also there's this older kid who kind of helps Lauren with the bullies and also babysits her sometimes, right? She was kind of babysat by Lauren's mom, and they were close and was like trying to protection spells when she was a kid on her and whatnot. So when she's targeted by the guy because she's trying to figure out what happened to Lauren's mother and whatnot, there's like a bunch of stuff where the mother's trying to protect her own child but also protect this other child, and weird magic stuff to like purposely help her out. And like, in theory it's interesting, it seems so much, but the writing was so bad. I hated it so much. Anyways, 2 stars. I don't think there was anything else to say about this book. I didn't like it. And then I finally read A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It took me a whole month. I was not the biggest fan of it, I'm gonna be honest. This is like the novella collection. It's like 3 novellas that the new HBO show is based off of. I think book 1 is gonna be season 1 from what I can tell. I'll be honest, I'm most excited for book 2. Maybe book 3. But or season 2, season 3. And the book 1 is a tournament. Book 2 is him trying to figure out what's really happening in this drought between 2 lords, well, a lord and a high lady. Book 3 is a tournament again. Essentially it follows this guy, Dunk, possibly short for Duncan, who is probably not actually a knight, trying to make it as a hedge knight after his mentor, dies suddenly from a cold. And so he's trying to make it so he doesn't have to, like, be a beggar or anything, because that's, like, the one thing you can do. He's also, like, 7 feet tall. He's a big, giant, massive man. And it's connected to the Targaryens and somehow. Anyways, there's this kid named Egg who bald and kind of forcefully becomes a squire, and it's about their journeys, but it's also, like, kind of a comedy sometimes, because it's just, like, this lower class, born in the flea bottom, probably bastard, doesn't know who his parents were, guy with, like, minimum education, can't read, is 17 in the first one, and somehow ends up in this, like, big political stuff with the Targaryens because he just happens to be in this room overhearing this thing when he's trying to get armor. Like, it's so funny in that aspect. But it's also about classism because, like, again, he's this person, but, like, he's the one who the High Lords go to when they need something to get done. They go to him, so he's the one with all the power in reality, kind of, which is funny because I say this the whole time I was reading it. I wish I was reading this, which is A Clash of Kings, second book in Game of Thrones, which I'm currently reading. And the last chapter I just read was Varys and Tyrion having this whole conversation about who has the real power, and is it, like, there was this whole aspect about men with swords having the real power because, like, they can kill you, right? And then this whole thing, instead of, like, the people who pay them and all this stuff, because they can just not do it or lie to you or just kill you and all this stuff. And that's kind of, I don't know which came out first, the second book or this second book in 97 Kingdoms or this, but, like, that's kind of the whole aspect of him being the one in power, and these lords and ladies having to be like, hey, do this for me, please, and him trying to decide what is the right thing, right? He's, like, a true knight, like, he believes in these important things of virtue, right? Protecting the innocent, and women and children and stuff like this, and then all these lords are, like, doing not okay things, and these are, like, people he looks up to until learning this, and he's like, and try to make the right decision in these situations. And it, in mindset, like, in hindsight, it was more interesting than it was in the act of reading it, because most of the actual reading experience was very boring for me, okay? But then I would sit there after reading one of the stories, one of the 3, and I'd just be like, okay, I can see what he's saying here. It's interesting. But also, I could just be reading Clash of Kings. Yeah, that's the name of it, A Clash of Kings. And having an even better time, okay? I left off on an Arya chapter. I say that, but, like, she's not my favorite. She was in the drama, not in the books. So, you know, that's what was happening with that one. And that's me saying that without any spoilers about how things are connected or anything. Let's go. I am excited for the show, especially since as somebody who's read the book, but also as somebody who knew the main plot twist that will probably happen mid-season, knew this stuff already. And so I'm going to be watching it with a bunch of people who have not read it, do not know this stuff, and they're going to be watching, they're going to be like, wait a second, what? And I'll be like, hey, I knew all along. Anyways, that was the last book. That was the last book I read, by the way. Technically, I counted one of them as DNF this morning for yesterday, but that's in a video, so we're not talking about it here. That's honestly, it didn't take me that long. I'm very proud of myself. Let's go. That's everything that we have to talk about here today. There will be another of these in a month, on December 31st, actually. Hilariously. So, yeah, there's the end of video stuff. Subscribe. A lot of people aren't subscribed. I have to tell you this. Apparently, there is a schedule. Wednesday and Fridays is when I upload. Normally what happens is Wednesdays it's gaming from Twitch. By the way, I also stream on Twitch, link below. Gaming on Twitch. Saturdays are book videos, but because December is so many of the end of year videos, right? There's only gonna be one gaming video, and that is next Wednesday. The rest of the month is just bookish videos. The end. That's the end of that. I'm gonna go eat food. It's 1:23 and I haven't eaten food yet today, but I've had 2 coffees. Also take off this lipstick because I'm gross tired. Bye-bye. Thank you for coming to this way.